With the table loaded down with fancy food, the folks are partying hard. Calling our young master Isaac an absolute genius, the crowd sets off fireworks because he got into the Royal Academy at just 10 years old. With his favorite dishes in hand, the maid congratulates him with a huge smile. Just then, a man hands a gift to our little MC, thanking him for saving his son's life in the past. Full of relief, the guy makes it clear he would never forget this debt. Jumping into the middle of the circle, little Jonas pulls out a lute and announces he's going to play a song in his brother's honor. Impressed by the kid's talent, the man praises him, saying that even the court musician was blown away by his skill. Finding the whole situation amusing, our MC asks to hear the tune. All excited, the little guy agrees on the spot. But in the blink of an eye, our boy wakes up screaming his head off in the middle of the night. Facing the dark room, he realizes it was all just a bizarre dream. With a heavy sigh, the young master calls himself an idiot for remembering that stuff. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echo down the empty hallway. Quietly cracking the door open, the servant named Lucas peeks inside. Seeing his master's ghost white face, Lucas asks if he had a nightmare. With a hand on his face, our boy confesses he dreamed about things from 20 years ago. Along with the meal, the servant tells him not to dwell on the past, because it's been a long time. After setting the cheese and soup on the table, he tries to lighten the mood. Right after, Lucas brings up the sword training our MC skipped the day before. Flashing back, the story shows that the young man caught a 3-month flu, and his father dragged him all the way to the Tower Mages to try and cure him. Over tea, the specialist explains that the boy has a completely bizarre physical constitution. In a calm voice, the old man details that everyone is born with a mana vessel that dictates the body's energy rhythm. The thing is, our MC's mana is way too violent and circulates so fast it's gonna end up blowing up its own host. Confirming the worst case scenario, the past shows the room completely trashed, proving the nightmare became a reality. Like a busted dam, the energy leaked from the boy and clashed with the ambient mana. Through tears of pain, our MC caused a colossal aura explosion. Wrecking everything around him, the power ended up taking his own younger brother's right hand. Collapsed on the destroyed floor, the boy saw the damage he'd done to his own family. Desperate with guilt, he begged his father to lock him away in some isolated hole. Full of sorrow, our young master accepted his cruel fate without complaint. Isolated in a dark corner, the boy made sure no one else would get close enough to get hurt. Sitting alone in the gloom, he spends his days meditating and trying to control his own disaster. But suddenly, a strong coughing fit hits the servant. Startled by the noise, our boy gets worried about him. With a dirty hand, the servant stares at the dark liquid staining his fingers. Aware of the risks, he instantly understands that coughing up blood is a pure symptom of mana poisoning. In a quick pull, the young man says this happened because the guy was near him for too long. Without a second thought, he orders the servant to go rest for at least a month, so he doesn't end up dropping dead right there. Closing the heavy wooden door, Lucas tells his master not to sweat the small stuff. With a smirk, the servant remembers that the master has already caused dozens of explosions, and he's never lost a single hair. Pounding his chest, Lucas guarantees he's the right man for the job and warns that any slip up from the MC could be fatal. Annoyed, our boy tells the servant to get lost so he can go back to meditating in peace. Full of loyalty, Lucas agrees and says goodbye respectfully. After the door slams shut, silence once again reigns in the underground prison, with the voices of the past echoing, "Congratulations, young master." In his head, our MC squeezes his eyes shut, trying not to completely lose it. With a blank stare, a nobleman in a suit seems to judge the whole situation from afar. On a bizarre, blood-stained board, the scene reveals the chaos the family has become behind the scenes. Totally in shock, the father stammers, calling for the guards in absolute desperation. With a sadistic eye glowing in the darkness, a sinister voice welcomes the servant Lucas. Sitting alone at the end of a giant table, the mysterious assassin waits patiently. All beaten up and bleeding, Lucas gives a weak smile, greeting the so-called young master. With a violent jolt, our MC wakes up from another gnarly nightmare, gasping for air. In the dark, the painful truth hits him with the blunt news that the faithful Lucas had kicked the bucket. Curled up in bed, he remembers the last time he saw his friend. He was coughing up blood and had been gone for over a year. Staring at the untouched plate of food, loneliness hits hard in that cold stone cell. Sinking into his pillow, the boy blames himself, saying he should have kept his distance from everyone from the start. Full of remorse, he thinks he should have been a cold jerk, so he wouldn't get attached to anyone. Remembering his happy, smiling family from the past, the pain squeezes our isolated hero's heart. Suddenly, time flies by as potatoes fall through a food chute, proving that the years have slipped through his fingers. grabbing the food with a hand that's already wrinkled and veiny. Our MC decrees that, despite everything, he's still alive and has to stay focused. With his mouth full of dry potato, the now old Isaac decides he needs to look to the future, not the past. By the marks on the wall, we can see that the young master withered away and turned into a worn-out old man in the basement. Calmly sitting on the bed, he realizes he's read every possible book, and now it's all down to intuition. Holed up in his study cave, he reports that he spent over 30 years focusing on magic to tame his own body. Sporting a respectable lumberjack beard, our old guy talks to himself about facing life's journey head-on. Inside his own mind, he understands he's trapped in a lonely world of his own, looking at a blue energy castle. Rummaging through his old notes, the old man finally finds a hot clue to solve the problem of his explosive aura. Staring at the stale bread, he finds it strange that research materials keep arriving but the food has gotten worse, indicating family drama. On the study table, magic stones help him stay focused on his great goal. Counting the scratches on the wall, the old man calculates he must be over 70 years old, locked up in there. Suddenly, a hoarse voice calls him brother. Through the old, rusty door, peeking through the bars, we see an aged Jonas asking if the MC is awake. Walking towards the exit in surprise, our hero asks what the heck his younger brother is doing there after disappearing for decades. With a tired and mysterious look, Jonas asks for permission to enter his isolated brother's cell. Startled by the unexpected visit, the MC is speechless, trying to figure out what the game is this time. With his fists clenched, the old man tells his brother to stay put and talk from there. Sitting on the other side of the bars, Jonas asks how the MC is doing and warns that it's a long story. Right after, he drops the bombshell that today is the anniversary of their father's passing. Shocked by the news, our old guy asks how the patriarch kicked the bucket. To signal that the chat will be a long one, the younger brother asks if he really wants to hear everything. Wasting no time, Jonas says he'll have to go back about 30 years to explain. Then, he reveals that a brutal war of succession broke out between the first and second princes. With a sad smile, the youngest seems to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. From the visitor's empty gaze, you can tell a lot of bad stuff happened out there. Back in the past, the image shows the two young brothers chilling in peace. Surprised by the narrative, our MC admits his brother has a knack for storytelling, because he even lost track of time. After a dry laugh, Jonas agrees and says he should have become a poet if he knew life would turn out like this. But his expression darkens as he remembers it would be pretty hard to work with only one hand. Weighed down by guilt, the old man murmurs a sincere apology. With a stern face, Jonas cuts him off, saying that despite all that, the affection remained. Making his feelings clear, he confesses that the family loved the MC so much. In the middle of coughing up blood, the brother laments not being able to see our hero's face one last time. Finding this talk of goodbye strange, the old man asks what happened during the war. In a weak voice, Jonas says he just wanted to rest a bit. Suddenly, the rusty door gives way, and the younger brother's body collapses lifelessly on the floor. Staring at his brother's corpse, our guy is in total shock. Noticing the wound on his back, he realizes Jonas managed to talk that whole time even though he'd been run through with a sword. With a strong pull, the old man grabs the body and says he can't just leave him there in the cold. Stepping out of the cell for the first time in decades, he begins to carry the weight of the dead. Climbing the dark stairs, the pain of loss crushes his heart. With tears in his eyes, he wonders why things ended up this way. Holding the skinny body, the old man grieves, feeling that his brother weighed nothing and must have been starving. Pushing open the double doors, he finally sees daylight after a lifetime in the shadows. Breathing heavily, he feels the fresh air hit his face. Before his eyes, the family's grand mansion appears completely in ruins. With cold flakes falling from the sky, he tells his brother that it's snowing. With the ground frozen solid, the MC decides to wait for spring to give his younger brother a proper burial. Promising to place him in the family tomb, the old man says that after that, he too can rest in peace. Soon the seasons change, and spring finally melts the snow in that destroyed cemetery. In front of the dug grave, our hero keeps his promise and buries his brother with dignity. With the mana stone in hand, he prepares to use his dormant power. Thanks to his awesome magic, he creates a giant pillar of fire to purify the area. All proud, he asks if the deceased saw the insane magic he just pulled off. With his hand on fire without exploding, he celebrates finally mastering his own energy. It took decades of suffering, but the old man finally beat his body's curse. Falling to his knees, he wonders if his time for eternal rest has come. Lying face down on the grass, the old man murmurs an apology for all the destruction he caused. Closing his eyes, he pleads for just a drop of divine mercy. In his final seconds, his mind wanders, thinking that if he hadn't given in to despair, the story would have been different. In front of the wrecked mansion, he passes away with this bitter doubt eating at his soul. On his last breath, our old guy's life finally fades out. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls to him, but his confused mind remembers that the servant hands had passed away a long time ago. With a loud swoosh, the curtains are thrown open, letting the sun hit his face. In a desperate leap, our kid wakes up young again, gasping for air like a madman. Beside the bed, the servant hands points out that his master is as pale as wax and covered in a cold sweat. Worried about the situation, the servant asks if he had a rough night's sleep. Confused by his own body, our MC wonders if this is that life flashing before your eyes thing. At that moment, quick footsteps echo in the hall, looking for the missing young master. With his face pressed against the window pane, the kid Jonas appears, calling for him to come outside. His eyes widening, our hero gets the shock of his life, seeing his brother whole and in front of him. Blinking a few times, he can hardly believe what's happening. Perched on a tree branch, the younger brother waves happily, showing a toy in his hand. Speechless, the MC can only whisper the kid's name in disbelief. With two perfect arms, his little brother smiles, asking him to come down and play in the garden. Touching his hand to the cold glass, our boy feels that this is too real to be a hallucination. As the heavy reality sinks in, he's dead sure this is definitely not a dream. Looking at his own hand, the conclusion is obvious: he really did travel back in time. In his head, the words from his meditation in the cell echo, telling him to empty his mind. Remembering his own magical training, he focuses on breaking the chains of his old life. With a determined look, our MC decides to embrace his true identity right now. Outside the room, maids are cleaning up a monstrous mess that he himself caused in a mana outburst. In the hallways, people whisper that the boy's temper is bad because of his bizarre illness. Overhearing the gossip, the servant hand scowls and threatens to teach the house gossips a lesson. Quickly, our hero grabs the servant's clothes, telling him to let it go. Without letting go of the shirt, he tells the servant to stop coming here, because he ended up getting hurt again. Falling to his knees, Hand swears his loyalty and says he still likes the young master, despite everything. With a sincere smile, the servant assures him that this is just a passing rough patch. Moved by the words, the kid agrees that this storm will soon be over for good. Seeing the memory of his brother smiling in the tree, he embraces this new reality with all his might. With the look of someone who has a focused plan, the MC calls the servant by name, ready to change everyone's destiny. At that, Hans readily agrees with his master. Without beating around the bush, our MC tells the guy to get out of the room without looking back. With a dark look, the boy demands that the servant disappear from his sight right now. Visibly sad, the attendant gets the message and just obeys the command with his head down. Clenching his fist by the window, our MC knows that keeping his friend away is the only safe choice. Staring at his own hand, the young man wonders if the servant said that just because it was what he most wanted to hear in a dream. With a sharp slap to his own face, the hero tries to snap back to reality and test his senses. Feeling the sting on his cheek, he confirms that the physical pain is very real. Totally focused, the kid decides it doesn't matter if all of this is a crazy dream or pure reality. Facing the window, the hero promises himself he will never let another mana explosion destroy everything. Tapping a pen on the table, the brilliant mind remembers the perfect method to cure his bizarre body. With the tool in hand, the bold plan involves creating a special runestone from scratch. After carving the magic pattern after years of research, the item finally gains an insane power and glows brightly. Surprised by the steadiness of his youth, our MC finds it amazing how much easier the manual labor has become. In theory, the goal is to create an organic vessel capable of holding all this chaotic energy running wild. But the boy's energy is so violent that it destroys any natural barrier like a hurricane. Unlike normal people who would drop dead on the spot, his resilient body magically heals right after the damage. Because of this bizarre cycle, the monstrous explosions kept repeating dozens of times. Thanks to this runestone, the tactic now is to intentionally damage his body's own energy channels. By piercing the magic circuits, our young man forces a continuous impact on the internal flow. This way, new routes open up, relieving the brutal pressure so the mana can circulate. Soon, a small flame appears in his palm, proving that control is back on track. With a tense sigh, our MC wonders if peace will reign this time. Suddenly, the fire grows insanely, and the magic goes off the rails in the blink of an eye. In a colossal flash, a giant flame shoots up, almost frying the bedroom ceiling. Totally shocked by the fire's massive power, the kid's eyes go wide, completely stunned. Not understanding a thing, the prodigy tries to process the scale of the damage he almost caused. Immediately, the magic channels tingle and glow a neon blue inside his body. Gritting his teeth hard, the hero realizes things have gotten completely out of control once again. In a swift move, the flame is punched out, a reminder that the goal here isn't to become a walking flamethrower. Back to square one, the main focus needs to be just avoiding new explosive disasters. With his feet firmly on the ground, the young man realizes he's going to need a much beefier runic setup. Keeping his cool, the obvious conclusion is that only 3 mana paths can't handle the pressure. At that, the blue stone is crushed in his hand, confirming the sad rule of not letting anyone get close. In the dead of night, a loud voice echoes across the castle courtyard, announcing that dinner is on the table. Nearby, the boy chews in silence while Hans tries to shove more food down his throat. Full of jokes, the servant teases his master and warns that he's not budging until the plate is clean. Next to the warm fireplace, the hero asks his own age and finds out he's exactly 12 years old. After another bite, it dawns on him that this is the perfect age to pretend to be spoiled and bratty. In pure silence, our kid continues his meal with the attendant watching his every move. Suddenly, the silver spoon clatters on the plate when the subject shifts to a certain person who's vanished from the house. In a somewhat sarcastic tone, the boy finds it bizarre that a nanny would leave the good life of nobility to care for her sick son. As the strong flames crackle in the fireplace, the mood in the room suddenly gets heavy. With his chin resting on his hand, the MC questions if the nanny's son was the only unlucky one to catch this so-called pneumonia. Quickly, Hams drops the awful news that all the children in the lower village have also been infected by the outbreak. Staring at the moon through the dark bedroom window, the memory of a grim past finally sparks in his mind. Remembering the nanny's family crying tears of blood, the young man declares he will prevent that death no matter what. Forcing his mind hard, the prodigy tries to recall the real cause behind this fatal epidemic. In a very quick flash, his body turns to the side, calling his faithful squire by name. Straight to the point, the question hits the table, wanting to know what bizarre monster the guard has been killing in the area. Far from the stone walls, the scene cuts to a deer peacefully strolling in the snow of the dark forest. Suddenly, a fiery explosion shatters the peace, scaring the cowardly animal into the dense woods. Passing near the moving target, the flame attack sets a piece of the thick forest on fire. Stepping out from behind the burned trees, our boy lets out a heavy sigh, cursing his own bad aim. Adjusting the backpack on his shoulders, the lone traveler continues his journey down the dirt path. Just ahead, an old, crooked wooden sign warns that the cliff's edge is approaching. In the hero's vivid memory, the servant explained that mysterious mages had bought the beast's carcass for the tower's studies. Still in the middle of the flashback, the attendant quietly confesses that he spied on the dead creature stretched out in the village courtyard. From the exact description of a hairy, silver spider, the MC's sharp brain immediately puts the puzzle together. Sitting on an isolated bench, our kid deduces that the winter spiders are a headache because they attack in infinite hordes. With a piercing gaze, the boy concludes that the real danger was never the bite, but the toxic mana the creature carries. In the vision of past terror, the disease slowly suffocated its victims like an invisible noose around their necks. Crouching in the dense darkness, the prodigy finds medicinal herbs glowing softly on the frozen ground. Holding the handful of dirty leaves, it's clear that the village kids inhaled the toxic gas released by the dead insects. In a quick move, the first-time healer shoves all the glowing weeds into his leather bag. Zipping it up, the hero takes advantage of the medical ignorance of the time, since no one there dreamed of an antidote for this. Full of confidence, our MC checks his stock and confirms that this small load is enough to clear everyone's lungs. Thanks to the power of the sacred bush, the kid's violent fever will be cured in almost the snap of a finger. Thinking of his distant family, the image of his father fighting wars in the middle of nowhere fills his thoughts. At the same moment, the memory of his mother traveling the world for a badass healer also hits him hard emotionally. Aware that the clock is ticking, our adventurer knows the nanny's son is heading for a coffin if he just sits around moping. Under the cold moonlight, the discreet arrival in the silent village happens in the middle of the heavy night. Through the rustic window, you can see a small body writhing in pain on a straw bed. After a few dry knocks on the door, the nanny opens a crack, scared to death, and comes face to face with a hooded dwarf on her porch. Tossing off the cloak in a stylish move, the kid shows off his cocky face, leaving the poor woman's jaw on the floor in shock. Startled by the late-night visit, the nanny asks what the heck he's doing there. Wiping the dust from his face, our MC hears the woman worrying about the dirt on his clothes. Wasting no time, the kid starts to walk in while the poor woman tries to block his way. Completely desperate, she warns that her son has pneumonia and the risk of contagion is extremely high. Pulling a cloth mask from his pocket, The hero shows he came prepared for the worst. Even so, the lady of the house keeps begging him to leave right away. Ignoring the warnings, our MC goes straight to the bed where the sick boy is passed out. Up close, you can see the kid's deplorable state, sweating cold under the straw blanket. Noticing the blue spots on his face, the improvised healer immediately confirms it's mana poisoning. In tears, the mother calls out to the boy, thinking it's the end of the line. Slowly, the little one opens his eyes, looking very weak. In a failing voice, the sick boy begs the young master not to fire his mom. Crying rivers, the nanny takes the blame, saying she missed work because of this mess. Giving a friendly smile from behind the mask, the MC assures her that no one is getting thrown out on the street. Right after, the scene cuts to a scary cave in the middle of the woods. Chatting with the local guide, our kid asks if that's really a limestone cave. Handing a lantern to the boy, the bearded man confirms the information. Turning his back, the guide warns him to be careful, because a lot of people have been disappearing around there recently. Alone at the entrance, the hero deduces that the winter spiders have definitely made their nest in there. With a snap of his fingers, a magic spark is already glowing in his palm. Full of confidence, our MC prepares to invade the dark hole. In his memory, he knows he could cast 3 spells at once thanks to the opened energy channels. Capable of going head-to-head with a second-class magic, his current strength is no joke. However, he's fully aware that there's a limit to all this power. Since he has no idea how many spiders are in there, just shooting like a madman is pure suicide. With firm steps, he moves forward into the mountain's shadows. Right away, his sharp eyes spot the deadly plant called ice nightshade. Crouching near the plant, he remembers that the diluted fruit serves as a common anesthetic. But for these specific spiders, the stuff is an insanely lethal poison. Quickly, he fills an old pot with the deadly leaves. Feeling the leaves prick his hand, the young man regrets not bringing a thick glove. Adjusting the pouch of runestones at his waist, he makes sure his stock is full for the fight. Without further delay, the intruder descends even deeper into the cave's bizarre darkness. Stepping on puddles and loose rocks, the silence of the place is terrifying. On the edge of an internal cliff, he peers into the abyss below. After calculating the fall, the hero decides that dying splattered down there would be a pretty pathetic way to go. Looking for a quick solution, he tries to find a safe path to avoid breaking his legs. Luckily for him, an old wooden ladder appears, attached right there in the corner. With his hands on the worn-out rope, he hopes the structure holds up. Very slowly, the prodigy descends step by step, lighting up the bottomless pit. Finally, his boot hits the solid stone floor. Letting out a sigh of relief, he realizes the worst is yet to come. Suddenly, the boy's blue eyes go wide at a totally gruesome scene. At the back of the hall, the floor is covered in mortal remains, proving it's the right place. Piles of bones and mummified bodies show that the victims were drained to the last drop. Picking up one of the dirty bones from the floor, the kid coldly analyzes the situation. In the blink of an eye, his mind connects the dots that this is where the missing villagers lie. All of a sudden, a disgusting sound of skittering legs grabs his attention in the dark. From the shadows, a horde of giant spiders begins to surround the intruder. Immediately, our MC conjures intense fire magic in his right hand. Ready for combat, he raises the flame to intimidate the nasty creatures. With the light in its face, a spider backs away, afraid of the extreme heat. In a quick move, the young master throws fire on the ground, creating a protective barrier around himself. To buy a few minutes of peace, he stands right in the center of the circle of flames. Adjusting the mask on his face, the final preparation finally begins. Kneeling on the dirty ground, he focuses on the pot of weeds he set aside earlier. With a magic touch, the deadly plants begin to burn, releasing a dense smoke. Soon, a green and totally toxic gas spreads through the enclosed space. With their lungs full of poison, the winter spiders begin to tremble violently. Completely dizzy, the monsters lose their strength before even trying to attack. Quickly, the poisonous smoke does the dirty work on its own, suffocating the entire plague. With a bloodthirsty look, our hero declares that the real hunt has begun. Far away, the scene cuts to the young master buried in books back at the territory's mansion. Super ticked off, he slams his pen on the paper, asking why things went so off the rails. Outside the window, a commotion is breaking out in the castle courtyard. A group of men argues aggressively about who's to blame for the lack of security. With a finger in his face, a leader shouts, demanding answers from the lord in charge. From the window above, the boy finds the whole scene in absolute pain. With no patience for drama, he closes the curtain on the angry crowd. Back in his chair, the kid suggests putting wooden planks on the window to muffle the noise. In a flash, he thinks it might be better to move his entire room to the house's basement. It's much quieter down there and perfect for focusing on his magical constitution research. Eyeing his notes, the MC already plans to line the walls with anti-explosion minerals. In a quick turn, he asks if Hans thinks the plan is good. However, the servant remains with his back turned, completely lost in silence. Staring into space, the boy leaves the pen hanging in the air, his head in the clouds. In a faint murmur, he remembers that the servant is probably doing fine in his own corner. In the mansion's grand office, the boy continues to write nonstop, focused on the work. With his hand flying across the paper, he frantically records all his research. Determined to finish quickly, the prodigy signs the last scroll of the batch. The pen glides one last time, setting the ink on the old sheet. Suddenly, a chill runs up his spine, and he realizes he forgot a crucial detail. Eyes widening, our kid realizes the blunder he just made. Standing in the middle of the table full of books, he processes the bizarre flaw in his own plan. Back in the cave, the toxic smoke rises to the ceiling, reeking of pure death. Collapsed on his knees on the grotto floor, the intruder coughs, trying to get some clean air. On the other side, the smaller spiders are already starting to keel over, dying from asphyxiation. Thanks to the fire, the burning of the ice nightshade takes effect quickly, paralyzing the pests before killing them. With a wet cloth tied over his face, the young master confesses he almost bit the dust too, since he's not immune to his own poison. To avoid kicking the bucket, he had to use his bizarre mana to purify the toxins from his body through sheer force. At the same time, he focused his remaining energy to generate a giant fireball. To gain ground, the plan is to create a perimeter of flames around, isolating the stunned monsters. Because of the 3 open magic channels, he can cast the area of effect fire with relative ease. Waving goodbye to the frying spiders, he prepares to move forward into the nest. In a colossal burst, the pillar of fire rises, devouring everything in its path. Noticing the pattern of the creatures running in desperation, he figures out they're all heading in the same direction. With a little laugh behind his cloth, the MC deduces there must be running water over there. Stomping hard on the hot rocks, he pushes forward through the scorching chaos. With rocks falling from the ceiling due to the extreme heat, the whole cave starts to become unstable. Realizing his mistake, he admits the fire was useful, but the smoke will end up suffocating him if this keeps up. Cutting the chatter, the obvious decision is to finish the mission as fast as possible and get out. Suddenly, a frozen underground lake appears, glowing a sinister blue. His teeth chattering, the boy mutters that the temperature in here dropped bizarrely, all of a sudden. Stepping on the slick ice, the cold shoots up through his boot, signaling that things just got serious. Getting closer, the hero is startled by the bizarre sight on the wall. Lighting it up with his improvised torch, he's hit with a huge surprise, seeing dozens of disgusting blobs stuck to it. Immediately, it clicks that those are all spider eggs about to hatch. With his eyes wide in shock, the kid feels the ground vibrate slightly. With a thunderous noise, giant footsteps begin to echo through the ice tunnel. Completely paralyzed, the kid tries to process the size of the creature that's coming. Deep in the cave, a colossal shadow begins to form in the bluish gloom. Wasting no time, the boy readies a fireball in his hand to defend himself. Launching the flame straight into the darkness, he tries to scare the monster off by force. Cutting through the cold air, the flaming missile tears its way toward the target. From the shadows emerges the monstrous Spider Queen, dodging her face out of pure instinct. Staring into the creature's red, angry eyes, our MC freezes for a second. Totally ticked off, the queen leaps with everything she's got at the tiny intruder. With a violent impact, she slams her legs into the ground, but the boy manages to roll away, narrowly escaping death. Mid-tumble, he curses loudly, frustrated that this bad feeling never leaves his head. Getting up quickly, the dust settles, and the Winter Spider Queen reveals her true demonic face. Unlike the other weaklings, this giant can handle flames just fine and even lets out a bone, chillingly cold breath. In a quick pounce, the spider throws a sharp leg like a spear into the middle of the ice. With pure agility, our MC dodges, throwing his body to the side on reflex. In the blink of an eye, he counterattacks, and the fireball explodes right in the monster's face. Panting with exhaustion, the hero realizes the explosion didn't even tickle the creature's damn ice armor. Fortunately, the queen isn't that agile, so it's possible to try and keep a safe distance. But the boy's vision starts to get seriously blurry out of nowhere. At the extreme limit of exhaustion, the lack of combat experience in a 12-year-old body takes its heavy toll. Stumbling on his feet, the kid almost collapses in front of the enraged spider. Taking a deep breath, he tries to search his mind for a reason not to give up right there. Suddenly, his thoughts drift far away, bringing back a good, random childhood memory. The soft wheat bread that Hans would give him in the dead of night floods his memory, bringing comfort. Even in that godforsaken place where wheat doesn't grow, The nanny would travel for hours by carriage just to buy the soft bread for the picky boy. In the warm memory, the woman's smile as she cared for him with affection ignites the will to live in the exhausted hero's chest. Pulling the old shovel from his back with fury, the boy declares he's going to demand a whole batch when he gets back. Wielding the iron tool and a fireball in the other hand, the warrior's posture changes completely. With no fear of death, the MC states that queen or not, the monster is nothing but a damn spider in the end. In a furious attack, he hurls his heavy backpack right at the giant creature's face. Distracted by the luggage, the spider breaks the bag, revealing shattering glass potions. Taking advantage of the enemy's second of blindness, the kid leaps with everything he's got for an aerial attack. In a brutal blow, he brings the iron shovel down with full force, cracking the ice on the monster's head. Screaming in pain, the queen lets out a sharp shriek that shakes the entire cave. Throwing its body back, the beast smacks the boy away like a rag doll. Still staggering, the spider goes crazy, screaming non-stop from the hard hit to the face. Scrambling on the slick ice, the hero digs his boots in, narrowly avoiding a fall into the abyss. Noticing he's running out of mana, he realizes that any mistake now is certain doom with no second chances. Knowing that long-range shots won't work, he decides to go for brute force at close quarters. Focusing his remaining energy, he concentrates a red, pulsing flame, very different from the piddly little ball before. By mixing cold and hot air through brute force, the mana ball begins to turn a bizarre, unstable blue in the air. Facing the beast head on, the kid mutters, asking for just a little more time. With a thunderous roar, telling the spider to go to hell, he unleashes his power with everything he has. Straight to the creature's forehead, the lightning magic cuts through the air and embeds itself in the frozen exoskeleton. Taking advantage of the shock, the boy pushes his luck and releases the contained energy at its limit. Screaming a deafening sound, the Spider Queen finally gives way as blue flames begin to devour her body from the inside out. In a quick flash of memory, a 10-year-old Isaac happily thanks the nanny for her gift. Holding a red handkerchief with care, the prodigy says that simple cloth is worth more than any gold. In the mansion's fancy hall, the kid is all smiles, showing his gratitude to the servants. Suddenly, little Jonas appears in the middle of the room, playing his lute excitedly to get his older brother's attention. But the sweet memory is abruptly erased by the grim sight of his younger brother's bloody hand dropping the instrument on the floor. Like a punch to the gut, the harsh memory hits the MC that there's no going back to those peaceful days, ever. Cutting to another night, the servant hands appears with a smile, delivering food to his isolated master's dark room. Trapped in a loop of regret, the old man recounts that he caught the bizarre flu right after turning 10. Because of the random explosions, the mansion became a minefield, leaving everyone in constant panic and covered in injuries. Chewing on a piece of dry bread in his prison, he remembers he must have been about 15 at the time. According to the rumors in his cell, the only news from the outside world came from his own father through the door. On the outside, the servant hands, coughing blood into his hand, would say he wouldn't leave his master alone because no one else paid attention to him. Behind the rusty bars, the ghosts of his family would appear, saying how much they missed the boy. Clenching his fist tightly in the dark, the old man confesses that deep down, he knew the whole raw truth. Behind the wall, his own broken father confirmed that the entire family held a deep resentment because of his curse. Looking at his own calloused hands, the guilt returns, tearing his soul apart that he should have disappeared much sooner. Walking through the blood spilled in the hallway, he remembers the day everything hit the fan and a mysterious portal opened in the mansion. Throwing his body onto the dirty floor, Jonas shouted for his brother to run and try to live the rest of his life in peace. As monsters wreaked havoc and the radical church set fire to everything, the scene of total destruction was burned into his retinas. With a violent jolt, the white-haired old man wakes up in a cold sweat after reliving that sick nightmare. Soon, Hans's voice echoes in his mind, saying with a smile that life is just like that, full of crap. But in the end, the servant himself kicked the bucket in a magical explosion, caused by the master he so fiercely protected. With heavy eyes, the 12-year-old young master clenches his own leg, admitting that he was the indirect killer of those who loved him. Standing at the door, the younger Hans tries to comfort the kid, asking him not to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders alone. Giving a piece of golden advice, the servant reminds him that sometimes you have to trust others too. Face down in the grass, the boy wonders if he's living a lucid dream or if death is the next chapter. Flipping through old memories, he remembers a legendary mage from his family who had the same bizarre constitutional problem. Holding the old book, the old man recounts that during his isolation in the basement, he found the secret records left by that ancestor. The big catch is that the isolated genius only managed to find the cure for his own cursed seconds before he finally bit the dust. Focused on his current goal, the 12-year-old MC promises that until he finds the definitive solution, he won't make a single wrong move. After successfully frying the spiders, the young man is thrilled because the rune theory is working perfectly on his body. Now with 3 magic channels wide open, the volume of mana running loose is brutal. Holding the glowing runestone, he shoots heavier and heavier fireballs, feeling the power bubble in his veins. Totally hyped by the discovery, the boy realizes he can mix magic in the same hit. Back at dinner in the mansion, the hero chews the soft bread, remembering the taste of good food after being locked up for so long. Staring at the empty room, he notices that the nanny hasn't shown her face all day. Immediately, a red alert goes off in his head because today is the exact day the village gets that fatal pneumonia. Because of that tragedy, the nanny lost her son in the original timeline and lived in depression until her last day. With the light hitting the bedroom rug directly, the boy quickly deduces the origin of all the evil that plagued the village. Turning the diary page, the hideous creature with silvery hair is confirmed to be the terrible winter spider. In theory, just throwing toxic smoke has a temporary effect, because the nest would still be there, generating more pests underground. Lying on the straw bed, the sick young boy can barely breathe, fighting for his life. With a grim face, the kid knows he can't let his guard down because the symptoms will come back strong soon after. Holding the mysterious plant, the MC's mind goes back to the past, remembering the recipe for the gnarly medicine. At that, a sharp pain in his head interrupts his thoughts, indicating that the curse never gives a break. Near the door, the nanny listens to her little master's bizarre instructions to boil weeds to cure her son's plague. Telling the poor woman to get out quickly, the boy scowls as he orders her to boil the herb in the cauldron. Already walking in the freezing cold, the kid curses himself for forgetting to tell his parents he was going out for a walk. Quick on the uptake, he suspects that those spiders definitely came from a very well-hidden nest. In a frantic flash, the Spider Queen appears screaming in the cave's darkness, and the blue ray hits her clean in a single blow. Tearing through the cold air, the magic power pierces the armor and shatters everything in its path. Screaming an ear-splitting noise, the monster's eyes go wide as the blue spark fries its face. Out of nowhere, our hero's vision goes completely black after seeing the queen finally topple over. Plummeting into the dark void, the kid passes out in mid-air, falling like a rock. Hitting his head directly on the ice floor, the small body is left sprawled in the bizarre darkness of the cold cave. Suddenly, his blurry vision focuses on a piece of magic ice floating in the middle of the sinister blue fire. With his head spinning, the kid wakes up a bit lost, not sure where he ended up. In the dimly lit hallway, the nanny finds the servant hands desperately shouting for the young master who disappeared in the dead of night. Grabbing his coat, the maid explains in a panic that the village is in chaos and everyone is looking for the problem child. Back in his thoughts, the hero recounts that after blacking out, he managed to crawl back to the village, nearly freezing to death. Arriving at the gates, he runs right into Hans, who was about to have a fit from searching for him. With no energy left to even speak, the boy collapsed for good in the desperate servant's arms. Now awake in the warm mansion bed, the kid rubs his face while the servants let out sighs of relief. With a nervous laugh, Hans tries to ease the tension by praising the young master's determination. Turning his face away with a pout, the boy doesn't answer, showing the same old attitude. Without ceremony, he cuts the chat and asks the servant directly how long he was out in bed. Quickly approaching the blanket, Hans replies that it was only half a day and immediately asks about his health. Surprised by his calmness, the nanny asks with tears in her eyes how he can think everything is okay. Playing dumb, the boy makes up an excuse on the spot that he was just looking for more healing herbs and took a silly tumble. Focused on what matters, he quickly changes the subject to ask how the nanny's son and the village kids are reacting to the gnarly tea. Relieved with the situation, our MC decides it's better to keep the mana poisoning a total secret. Soon, his sharp mind calculates that if the big shots find out, they'll send a team of scholars to poke around the mine and find the spider carcasses. Impressed by the boy's wisdom, the nanny questions how he knew about those herbs, since not even the Count's doctor knew anything. To cut the small talk, the young master tells Hans it's time to leave, but the servant grumbles about the snow falling outside. Full of gratitude, the woman holds out a basket, asking them to take it home. Inside the basket, bright red apples represent the sincere thanks of all the villagers. Staring at the fruit, our hero seems to be mulling over some important idea. Straight to the point, the boy tells the nanny to take another week off to care for her sick son until he's fully recovered. Totally surprised, the poor woman asks if she won't get in trouble with the head butler for the extended absence. With a cynical little face, the prodigy retorts, asking who said she would just be resting. With the apple in the air, he gives the clear order for her to turn those fruits into a fancy jam. A bit confused, the woman confirms the request as the kid is already turning his back, telling her to bring the jam with wheat bread when she returns. With a smirk, the hero suggests an apple pie instead, and the idea is very well received. Under the heavy falling snow, the wooden house in the village finally finds some peace and warmth. Far away, the imposing family mansion awaits the young master's return in the middle of the harsh winter. Panting and with his shirt open, our boy gasps for air, showing that the training is pretty intense. It seems a whole week has passed since the commotion in the spider cave. During that time, the kid's magic vessel has gone through a seriously insane evolution. Literally, the original 3 mana channels got a boost, bringing the total count to 4. Because of this, his daily running routine has also increased, since using magic drains a lot of physical energy. Lost in thought, the prodigy understands that sorcery requires intuition and calculation, and to have a strong mind, the body needs to be able to take the heat. Soon, it clicks that his quick exhaustion back at the mine happened precisely because of this weak child's body. In the memory of his past life, the image of the late Lucas training his physical endurance comes to mind, showing the preparations have already begun. Suddenly, his steps freeze when a formal voice calls for the young master in the castle hallway. Right in front of him, the butler Schiller appears with an escort, announcing it's time for the routine medical check. Up. Slightly startled, our MC recognizes the head butler and eyes the man in the suit beside him with suspicion. In the boy's memory, this doctor was hired by his own father and has a reputation for being the best in the entire region. After examining the patient, the doctor cheerfully concludes there's nothing wrong and that the kid is bursting with health. Bothered by the hasty diagnosis, our hero listens as the doctor suggests adjusting his medication as soon as possible. Opening his fancy briefcase, the specialist presents a potion called panache, which is used to stabilize energy flow. Popularly known as the cure for all ailments, this panacea is used as a tonic and stimulant by soldiers. Supposedly, the drug stabilizes mana, but the young master knows this is a grotesque mistranslation from the ancient language. Eyeing the purple flask, the hard truth is that the liquid accelerates energy flow, turning it into pure poison for someone with chaotic magic like his. But for our hero's current little body, this stuff is the perfect catalyst to intentionally force the expansion of his magic channels. As soon as the doctor leaves, the boy notices the butler's fixed gaze and asks if he wants to say something. True to form, the man in the suit comments in a dry tone that the young master is being far too well behaved for his taste. Not taking it seriously, the kid listens as the butler reminisces about the old days of constant outbursts and tantrums in the mansion. With a mocking little smile, the prodigy questions if he should have thrown a fit, since the old doctors used to run from him in fear. Without beating around the bush, Schiller says he's already heard about the feat of curing the kid's pneumonia in the Black Goose village. With a slight bow, the old man firmly requests that from now on, the boy act with more discretion on his adventures. Through the old man's cold eyes, you can feel the weight of authority and respect he carries in commanding the house. With his back to the man, our MC confesses in his thoughts that he was never able to get close to this guy properly. With imposing steps in the hallway, the butler was always seen as a cold old man who prefers to keep everyone at arm's length. However, a warm memory hits the boy's mind, showing a more human side of the head of staff. In the past vision, Schiller himself handed a bag to the kid, asking that if he needed to do something stupid, he should at least give a heads up first. Deep in his memory, the boy recalls his deceased brother's last words about that man's unwavering loyalty. In front of the destroyed mansion, the butler had served the family since the previous generation and remained faithful until the day he lost his own life. In a complete change of subject, a curious voice in the garden questions why the young master is running every single day. Bathed in sunlight, our MC explains that historically, all badass 5th-class mages trained their physical bodies without exception to withstand the mana. Far away, a pen glides elegantly on paper, signing another important report from the house's paperwork. Locked in his office, the butler Schiller confirms that the verification is complete, and the boy really did cure the entire village on his own. Concentrating on his notes, the old man concludes that despite the body being jinxed for magic, the young man has a bright future as an alchemist or scholar. With a rare smile of satisfaction, he mutters that this news will surely ease His Excellency's mind. Suddenly, knocks on the door break the silence, and the butler authorizes the person to enter the room. With a somewhat panicked look, A red-haired maid pokes her head through the door, apologizing for the sudden interruption. Nervously, the girl reports that the maids are disappearing without a trace, and points out that the latest one to vanish had never missed a single day in 3 years of service. With her hands on her chest, the woman swears up and down that something terrible happened to her diligent friend. In a quick flash of terror, the image of one of the maids stumbling desperately in the dark shows that the situation is bad. In the hallways, the cleaning staff gossips that the climate in the north is brutal, and bandits or monsters show up all the time looking for trouble. Defending her colleague, another maid puts her foot down, saying the missing girl would never abandon her post without telling the rest of the group. Focused on her work, the missing girl worked day and night just to pay for her sick father's expensive medicine back in the village. Leaning on his broom, the sarcastic Hans remarks that the girl probably got tired of playing nurse for the old man and took off. Faced with his colleague's irritation, he backs off laughing and asks the group to hear the grand conspiracy theory he's cooked up. In a very mysterious tone, the servant puts on a spooky face to reveal his bizarre guess about the mass disappearance. Suddenly, the image of a sinister purple skull dominates the screen, announcing that the blame can only lie with pure black magic. In the sunny courtyard, the young master hears the rumor of heavy witchcraft and finds it super normal, since he lives with a whole family of crazy mages. Full of curiosity and with his arms crossed, our prodigy encourages his assistant to spill the beans and tell him all the details of this wild gossip. With a tense look, the guy reveals that this wave of grim disappearances started happening throughout the territory exactly 2 months ago. Fleeing in the middle of the night, the first victim was a maid named Hildy, who vanished off the map out of nowhere. Shrouded in a red aura of death, the second girl disappeared weeks later, until the tragedy swallowed the third victim this weekend. With a chill down his spine, the guy named Bill gulps, questioning internally how a kid can have such a murderous look. To try and hide his fear, the gossiper points to Hans, reminding everyone that the guy is always covered in bruises, just for being the explosive boy's personal assistant. Casually sweeping the floor, Hans is the target of his colleague's criticism, who bets the poor guy will never have peace in his life for hanging around the MC. In that same instant, the brutal memory of Hans dying in the explosion returns, breaking the MC from the inside and making the assistant bitterly regret his joke. To break the heavy mood for good, the gray-haired kid cuts off the conversation and calls the gossiper by name, demanding immediate attention. Terrified, the guy screams at the top of his lungs, begging not to die right there. With a cynical smile on his face, our MC suggests the coward do a little job for him in exchange for his life. Surrounded by a blue fire aura, the kid recalls the memory of the dead maids from the past. Focused on his own pain, the prodigy remembers that this disaster happened right after Hans, and the nanny kicked the bucket. In front of the door, the two shy maids appear. They were the only ones who agreed to take care of the cursed boy. Livid, the young master kicks them both out, screaming with zero patience. Smashing the vials on the floor, he says those potions are useless and forbids that trash from entering his room. With her head down, the maid named Annette accepts his fury, because she also carries the guilt of having caused a friend's death with her own hands. Surprised by the sudden confession, our hero murmurs the employee's name, speechless. With an empty gaze, the young woman reflects that at least once in their life, everyone makes a fatal mistake. Reflecting on his own screw-up, our MC admits he should have gotten more information out of her back then. Suddenly, knocks on the double doors break the silence, and the guy named Bill announces his arrival. Sitting comfortably in the room, the boy asks if his lackey found the maids and gets confirmation that it was a quick job. Full of swagger, the informant explains that he interrogated the beggars on the main road, and the descriptions matched the missing women perfectly. A bit confused, the hero questions the reason for involving a broker, but the guy says the little master doesn't understand how the real world works. Far away, the journey south requires a heavy mercenary escort against bandits and money to secure free citizen status. With their bundles in hand, the women could never afford this escape on their own without outside help. Scratching his chin, the young master agrees that the mercenary's logic makes perfect sense. In a quick flash, the informant's eyes go wide as he figures out the financial play. All cynical, Bill smiles broadly, confessing he blew all the travel money just to get the truth out of the beggars. Without showing any reaction, the prodigy asks if the guy spent 20 silver coins, since that's almost half a year's salary. Playing dumb, the lackey makes the excuse that he just wanted to solve the case quickly and praises his master's generosity. In front of the desk of notes, the mercenary asks if there's more work, and the kid confirms that there is. Clenching his fist in joy, The crook celebrates in his head, thinking he's found a rich sucker to extort. All talkative, the guy guarantees that to make big money, you have to take risks and offers to guide the boy to the so-called broker. Cut to the scene of the crook locked in a dirty cell, asking in shock what the kid is doing in a hole like that. Sweating bullets, the mercenary tries to keep his composure, repeating his own line that life is high risk, high reward. In just his underwear behind bars, the poor guy lets out a heavy sigh, realizing he's screwed up big time. Sitting with the posture of a boss, the MC promises a fat reward this time, and the prisoner accepts on the spot without blinking. Staring at the crook with an icy gaze, the hero ignores the nervous chuckles and says that money isn't the problem. In the con man's head, he thinks he's the master of smooth talk and sees the kid as just a fat goose full of gold to be plucked. Cutting the crap, the young master demands to know the conclusion of that investigation right away. With no way out, the mercenary reveals that slave traders promise an easy life in the South, but in the end, just sell the women. With his arms crossed, the guy silently judges his little master, thinking he's just an innocent kid. In the middle of the luxurious room, the informant strikes up a conversation, trying to seem casual. But in reality, the guy is screaming desperately, trapped in the cage, not understanding how his perfect plan went so wrong. Shrouded in a dark aura, our hero holds a blue stone with the pure look of a psychopath. In his memory, the red-haired maid begged the boy not to lose hope, assuring him he would get better soon. Totally broken inside, our MC repeats the word, hope, as if it were the biggest joke in the world. In the shadows, he questions what the woman knows about hope after he himself killed those he loved with his own hands. With his fist dripping blood, the pain of the past screams out, asking if anyone understands the weight of this curse. Trying to console her master, the employee murmurs that she understands that bitter feeling exactly. Shocked by the response, the kid asks if she's talking about her so-called lost friend. With teary eyes, Annette confesses that if she had looked back or reached out her hand, maybe her friend would be alive today. Face to face, the maid admits his situation is bizarre but reminds him that anyone can make unforgivable mistakes by accident. Again, the image of the blood-stained hand reinforces that Annette's cynical words brought a strange comfort to his soul. Kicking them both out of the room, he demands to be left alone while the women hesitate, worried about his injury. Back to the interrogation, the prisoner begs for his life, swearing he's not even married yet, and that life is a divine gift. Tugging at his collar, the guy tries to justify his fear of death with a weak smile. With a blue flame glowing in the air, the young master coldly confirms the victims' names. Remembering the employees, he says the names Rosa and Annette out loud. Trying to get the truth, the MC assures the lackey there will be no punishment if he spills the beans. In the fancy office, the informant hesitates a bit before questioning if the blame for all of this falls on him. Remembering the gossip in bed, the hero hears the voice spreading that the sick master would do any kind of witchcraft to cure himself of the curse. Terrified by the rumor, the maid's eyes go wide as her colleague suggests the missing women were sacrificed alive. Changing his tone, he insinuates that the girls ran off with some guys and gets a heavy scolding from the other maids. With a cynical smile, the crook scoffs at the threat, assuring them that his theory could very well be the truth. Furious, Rosa defends her master with tooth and nail, reminding them that the boy even sheltered a criminal like him. Turning her back, the woman leaves the gossiper fuming in the courtyard. Resentful, the guy's face darkens, thinking her whole justification is a load of nonsense. Back in the present, the kid listens to the full report, sitting calmly in his office. With his blue eye glowing in the darkness, he asks if the investigator has any idea of the motive behind all this. Rubbing his neck, the prodigy raises the suspicion that the whole story stinks of lies. In the flashback, the maids comment on the 3 victims in 2 months while the janitor sweeps the floor, ironically saying that castle is no paradise. Behind the door, the head butler Schiller appears with a sour look, catching the gossiping employee red-handed. Busted, the young woman tries to explain herself, stammering before the old man's authority. After hearing the outcome, the MC smirks, finding the butler's attitude quite thoughtful, and thanks him for his service. Strolling near the fountain, the butler discovers that the young master knew everything, because he cornered poor Hans to get the information. Adjusting his glasses, the old man warns that if this trouble leaks, the family council will come down on them like a ton of bricks. With a cold expression, our hero decrees that he'll forgive this security breach just this once. In a time jump, the doctor in the suit returns with a big smile, asking about the VIP patient's health. Panting and drawing on mana, the kid realizes his vessel is holding strong, and now he can cast 4 spells at once thanks to the intense fight with the spiders. Staring at the purple potion called Panacea, he He scoffs that his father really went all out on the poison disguised as medicine. Hiding in the shadows, Bill threatens a contact, warning that if they find out about his escape, everyone's heads will roll. Totally panicked, the accomplice asks if the mercenary didn't know the rumor that the young master invaded the abandoned mine all by himself.